A $200 million fighter jet plunging into the Alaskan snow after a 50-minute call gone wrong. India rolls out its very first semiconductor chip in Gujarat, beating its own deadline. A new survey reveals that 40% of women in our cities still feel unsafe. In Washington, Vice President J.D. Vance says he's ready to step in if tragedy strikes President Trump. And back home, Groww eyes a $1 billion IPO even as millions of investors exit India's markets. Big crashes, bold firsts, sobering realities, and high-stakes bets. That's the news shaping the world right now. Welcome to Top of the Morning by Mint. I'm your host, Nelson John. This is your smart daily briefing on what matters. From big moves in business to headlines shaping India and the world, we cut through the noise so you start your day informed and ahead. It's Friday, August 29th. Let's get started. Here's a recently released visual of a $200 million F-35 fighter jet circling Alaska for nearly an hour. Its pilot stuck on a live conference call with Lockheed Martin engineers, desperately trying to fix jammed landing gear. That was January 28th at Alaskan Air Force Base in Fairbanks. The pilot eventually ejected safely. Moments later, the jet plunged nose first and exploded in a fireball. The U.S. Air Force investigation has now revealed why. Ice. Nearly a third of the jet's hydraulic fluid had turned to water, freezing in the -1 degrees Fahrenheit conditions. That locked the nose gear at an angle and tricked the jet's systems into thinking it was on the ground midair. Attempts to reset the system and even 2 touch-and-go landings only made things worse. Here's the thing. Lockheed had already issued a bulletin in 2024 warning that hydraulic icing could make the F-35s uncontrollable. Investigators concluded that if engineers on that 50-minute call had recalled it, the pilot might have been told to land or eject earlier, saving the jet. This wasn't an isolated scare. Just days earlier, another F-35 at the same Alaska base faced the same icing issue, but managed to land. Earlier this year, in India, an F-35 was briefly grounded in Kerala after technical concerns. And in Japan, one of the jets was forced into an emergency landing, adding to the fighter's growing list of reliability questions. With this crash, the tally of the F-35 accidents has now climbed to 15 worldwide. That's a sobering number for the most advanced and most expensive fighter in America's arsenal. For a jet designed to dominate the skies, the F-35 still seems to be fighting some very human flaws on the ground. Now here's a milestone. India's first semiconductor chip just rolled out of Gujarat. IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw inaugurated the pilot OSAT facility of CG Semi Private Limited in Sanand on Thursday, calling it the first step in India's semiconductor journey. Now, to be clear, this isn't a chip built from scratch in an Indian fab. It's a packaged chip, assembled and tested here, but still a first of its kind for the country. Prime Minister Modi had promised this moment by end of 2025. Sanand has beaten that deadline. The pilot unit called G1 comes with an investment of 600 crore rupees and employs around 200 people. Its capacity, 500,000 chips a day, will feed into consumer electronics, automobiles and electric vehicles. The larger G2 unit, nearly 20 times bigger and backed by 7,000 crore rupees, will follow next year. Together, they are expected to churn out 4.7 billion chips annually within 5 years. CG Semi leads the project with a 92% stake, supported by Japan's Renesas Electronics and Thailand's Star Microelectronics. It's part of the government's 76,000 crore rupee India semiconductor mission, with 10 plants already cleared, 4 in Gujarat alone. At the inauguration, Vaishnaw called this pilot crucial for customer validation before scaling up to full production. Gujarat Chief Minister Mr. Bhupinder Patel linked the achievement to India's growing self-reliance in technology. And CG Power's Vice Chairman Mr. Subbiah struck a note of ambition. India must use its own chips, bring back Indian semiconductor talent and invest in R&D to move beyond assembly. Here's the bigger picture. Sanand is fast emerging as India's chip hub. With Micron and Keynes plants also on the way, the pilot line isn't just about making chips. It's about laying the foundation for India's place in the global semiconductor map. Here is a number that hits harder than official crime stats. 40% of women in India's cities say they feel not so safe or outright unsafe. That's from the newly launched Nari 2025 index, which surveyed more than 12,700 women across 31 cities. What it reveals is stark. In 2024, 7% of women said they faced harassment, staring, catcalling, lewd remarks, even unwanted touching. The most vulnerable? Young women aged between 18 to 24. And here's the kicker. That's a rate 100 times higher than what the official crime records show. So why the gap? Because most harassments never get reported. Only 22% of women told authorities about their experiences. Fear of stigma, fear of not being taken seriously, or simply fear of facing more harassment, these keep many silent. Infrastructure, well, they also play a role. Poor lighting, weak public transport, and badly designed city spaces add to the sense of insecurity. Among the least safe cities named were Delhi, Kolkata, Ranchi, Srinagar, and Faridabad. At the other end, Mumbai ranked among the safer metros, along with Kohima, Vishakhapatnam, Bhubaneswar, Aswal, Gangtok, and Itanagar. Workspaces, well, they aren't exempt either. Over half the women surveyed weren't sure if their offices even had a legally mandated posh policy against sexual harassment. Launching the report, National Commission for Women Chairperson Vijaya Kishore Rahatkar said the findings go beyond crime statistics, capturing the livid reality of women. P-Value Analytics MD Prahalad added that the insights should guide governments and corporates and communities towards Prime Minister Modi's Viksit Bharat 2047 vision. Now, what this really means is numbers on paper are only part of the story. Women's everyday experiences of safety or lack of it tell us much more about how secure our cities are truly. US Vice President J.D. Vance says he's ready to take over as president if a terrible tragedy were to occur, though he stressed Donald Trump is in great health. Speaking to USA Today, the 41-year-old VP said he's had the best on-job training in his first 200 days and would be ready to step in as commander-in-chief if needed. The comments come as speculation grows around Trump's health. A bruise on the president's hand, spotted during his recent meetings with South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung, has triggered chatter online again. The White House downplayed the issue, attributing it to Trump's famously firm handshakes and daily aspirin use. Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt called him a man of the people who shakes more hands than any other president. But the White House physician later confirmed that President had been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, a common, generally benign condition in people over 70 that can cause swelling and bruising in the legs. The diagnosis was made in July after photos showed swelling in Trump's lower legs. For now, Vance insists President remains strong and fit to serve his term. But his remarks highlight the quiet undercurrent in Washington, preparing for what-ifs, even while projecting confidence in Trump's health. India's stock-brokering giant Groww has secured approval from SEBI to raise between $800 million to $1 billion through an IPO. The Bangalore-based fintech, backed by big names like Tiger Global, Peak 15 Partners, and even Microsoft Satya Nadella, filed its draft prospectus in May and has JP Morgan Chase and Kotak Mahindra Bank leading the issue. But here's the twist. This IPO comes at a time when India's discount brokerages are losing steam. According to NSE data, Groww, Zerodha, Angel One, and Upstock together shed nearly 2 million investors in the first half of 2025. Groww lost about 600,000 users since January. Zerodha about 550,000. Angel One 450,000, and Upstock just over 300,000. The exodus is linked to SEBI's tighter futures and options rules, stricter margins, shorter contract expiries, tougher eligibility, and higher taxes. Retail traders, once drawn to speculative bets, are pulling back in the face of lower short-term gains and volatile markets. Still, analysts see this as a pause, not a collapse. Retail activity dips during volatility, says Kranti Bhattini of Wealth Mills Security. But India's financialization story is still in its early stages. Despite client losses, Groww's financials look solid. Its profit jumped to 1,819 crore rupees in FY25, more than triple the previous year, while revenue rose 31,000 to 4,056 crore rupees. In June, it also raised $200 million at a $7 billion valuation led by Singapore's sovereign wealth fund GIC. So here's the picture. Groww is heading into public markets with strong backing and strong earnings, but in a sector facing a reality check. For retail investors, the big question is whether this IPO rides India's long-term equity boom or gets caught in its current headwinds. That's all for today. Thank you for joining in. We're eagerly looking forward to our next Top of the Morning episode, which will be packed with the latest news. Until then, this is Nelson John signing off. Have a great Friday.